An exceptional one, I suppose. He told me he's woken up expecting that call every single day since Betsy joined the intelligence services.
I don't think I could do the same if the situation was reversed. I'm not even sure I'll be able to show my face at this service they're having for her at Westminster Cathedral.
It's strange, isn't it? None of the students even know what to say to me right now. I mean, they'll go off and fight Magneto at the drop of a hat, but everyone except Wolverine is afraid to catch my eye at the moment. It's times like this I realize how young they really are, and what a horrible, ugly mess I've made of things, Moira.
What? Who said you've made a mess of things?
Oh, come on. David dead, the Braddock girl lying on a mortuary slab, poor little Bobby Drake fighting for his life in an intensive care unit. His parents are taking him out of school and suing me for willful neglect. They told the press I'm a danger to children, and I'm not sure I disagree. How can I run a school to shape young minds when I couldn't even raise David properly? What kind of monster can't even cry at his own son's funeral, for God's sake?
You are not a monster, Charles.
No, I'm careless and naive, and frankly, that makes me even more dangerous these days. This stupid dream of mine is over, Moira. As soon as we get back to New York, I'm disbanding the X-Men for good.
The Auckland Sky Tower, New Zealand.
Jean, I want a bubble around everyone on the team. Storm, take out the acolytes.
Westchester County, New York. The X-Men. Professor X.
You killed my girlfriend, you little cow! The first real action I get since I become a terrorist, and you blow her off a bloody roof!
Perhaps you meet someone nice in physiotherapy, yeah?
Oh, that's funny, man. You guys just crack me up. So let's see how wide you're smiling in T-minus 10 when I do the Hiroshima thing, huh?
Do I look like I'm smiling, jackass?
FAO Scott Summers. Do not open until midnight. My dear Scott, by the time you return from New Zealand, I will have packed my things and gone. I apologize for not saying this to your face, but you know how we telepaths are with verbal confrontation. I'm leaving because I failed. Failed as a husband, failed as a father, and failed as a teacher. My books and lectures told the world how man and mutant could live in harmony, but I realize now that I was wrong. Only one species may sit at the top of the food chain because that is the natural order of things. I'm glad that my New York lecture was canceled as a mark of respect for those David killed, because I really couldn't spout my claptrap with Iceman lying in a hospital bed. I'm glad new terror groups are beginning to form, because what right did I have to subvert the ideals of the Brotherhood of Mutants? My biggest conceit, however, was this psychic rehabilitation of Magneto I intended. In retrospect, it's mind-boggling to think that I made a man forget who he was in the vague hope that he might one day come around to my way of thinking. Mind-boggling. That's why I plan to remove those blocks later this afternoon. It is clear to me now that Magneto must be freed and nature allowed to take her own course.
New York.
You know, I can't believe those acolyte clowns broke away from the Brotherhood because they figured Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch weren't hardcore enough for them anymore. That's like handing back your little Nazi party badge because you reckon Hitler's going soft on the gypsies.
Actually, Quicksilver's ceasefire has been very controversial, Wolverine. Just the fact he is in talks with the United Nations has caused great unrest in his ranks. I suspect that the acolytes of Magneto will not be the last of their disgruntled splinter groups.
Aw, crap. I've still got bullets under my skin. How the heck am I supposed to go out on a date with a butt that looks like the freaking Rockies?
It is good to be back, you know, Logan.
Good to have you back, you big ugly freak.
Excuse me, you're Charles Xavier, aren't you?
Why do you say that?
Oh, come on, Professor. You're in every newspaper and magazine in the world at the moment, sir. No offense, but you're a pretty unique-looking guy. I've seen you around here a lot lately. Do you know one of the kids in my class or something?
Oh, no, no. Sometimes I just like coming down to the park to clear away the cobwebs. I just find it reassuring to know that I'm not the only teacher in the world struggling to deal with disadvantaged youngsters.
Ha! You know, I never really thought of that before, but I guess we do have pretty much the same job in a strange way. Of course, my kids don't save the world or anything, but I guess this explains why I'm always taking such an interest in what you guys are getting up to.
Very possibly.
Hey, listen, my name's Eric Lenscher, by the way. I teach 4th grade at the Institute of Special Education over in the Bronx, but I suppose,
You suppose that I knew that much already, right? You're quite correct, Eric. I'm afraid conversation holds few surprises when you're a telepath.
So what are you doing here? I thought I heard on the news that the Xmen were in New Zealand fighting some militant faction from the Brotherhood of Mutants.
Oh, the students are, but it's their last mission under my jurisdiction, Mr. Lenscher. As of midnight tonight, I'm closing the school.
Are you serious?
Unfortunately.
But what about this whole pacifist mission you were telling people about in your book? Why would you just turn your back on all that stuff now?
You're the one who claims to read the magazines and newspapers, Mr. Lenscher. I'm sure you're aware of what my son did to Paris and Rome.
You can't take the blame for something your son did, Professor. There's just as many papers out there saying how things would have been worse if the X-Men hadn't been there to stop him.
But that's precisely my point, don't you see? There I was on an international lecture tour promoting nonviolent thinking, and my students neutralize an opponent by crushing him under a car.
What do you mean? Are you disappointed with Colossus because he resorted to murder?
No, not at all. Quite the reverse, in fact. I'm starting to think he might have been right.
The Danger Room.
Hey, honey. I haven't eaten since we refueled in L.A. You want to head into town for some Chinese food?
Actually, I've already had my carbohydrate limit for the day, but the offer is appreciated, Aurora. Besides, the virtual reality training room has been acting up again, so I'm trying to create something a little more tangible with all these spare parts the professor bought me.
So, you want to go see a movie instead? I know you don't rate Eddie Murphy flicks, but I thought we could maybe take a look at that European cinema season you were telling Colossus about this morning.
What's the point? You loathe subtitled movies. Just go and have a laugh at the Eddie Murphy thing with Colossus or somebody. I'll be fine.
For God's sake, Henry, will you stop?
Stop what?
Talking to me like a casual acquaintance. A few weeks ago, we were thinking about getting our own place, and now your fur stands on end when I walk in a room. I wish I'd never even brought up this idea that the professor could be using his powers to play with our heads.
But it all makes such perfect sense, don't you think? How else could someone who looks like you be attracted to someone who looks like me?
Because I love you, Henry.
Or because the professor wants me to think you love me because I'm a valuable presence at the school. What if Xavier's son wasn't lying, Aurora? I love you too much to make you kiss this face unless there's empirical evidence that we're talking about the real thing here.
So what are you saying? That you were wrong, Professor? That you think violence is the answer now?
To be honest, I don't know what I think anymore, Eric. Every other stage in evolution has been marked by bloodshed. Why should the twilight of Homo sapiens be any different? Perhaps Magneto's right, and I'm just a romantic idealist trying to hold back the future with some clever brainwashing and a gang of pimple-faced children. Perhaps I'm just clinging on to some old-fashioned human sentiment evolution intended to obliterate.
Actually, my girlfriend read a thing online saying that Magneto's tactics were much closer to the traditional human mindset, sir. Smashing your opponents into submission is a pretty imperialistic idea for someone who claims to be the harbinger of a new golden dawn. Even the Brotherhood of Mutants are following your lead these days and getting what they want through compromise and negotiation. Wouldn't your quitting now just set everything back?
I think you're rather overestimating my importance, Mr. Lensher. I mean, look at me. Do I really strike you as the savior of the 21st century? I might go around talking about psychic rehabilitation and post-human economics, but I'm really just an emotional vacuum. My son dies, and I can't even cry at his funeral. My ex-wife needs me to hold her, and I'm thinking about the mascara stains as she sobs into my shirt. David's death proved what I was. How can I be trusted to shape the minds of the next generation when I couldn't even raise a boy properly? I'm a fraud, Eric. A fool. Anyone who thinks that my ideas have any merit needs to have their heads examined.
Well, frankly, I take that as an insult, Professor.
What are those?
Tickets for your lecture. They canceled at Madison Square Garden. I'm just hanging on to them in case they change their minds.
You bought these tickets of your own free will?
At $49 a shot. I know it's hard to believe, but theoretically, yes. Professor?
Thank you, Eric. Thank you very, very much.
St. Charles Hospital.
Are you absolutely sure these cops can't see us, Marvel Girl?
Oh, please. Sensory manipulation was one of the first things the professor taught me, Cyclops. As far as New York's finest are concerned, we're just a couple of flies buzzing around against the glass.
It's horrible to think that's Bobby lying there, isn't it? He looks like a little broken toy or something. How did things get this screwed up, Jean? How did we end up in a situation where the city is hiring armed guards to stop the Xmen visiting Iceman?
Because the professor put him up against the most powerful mutant in the world when every other kid his age was playing Metal Gear Solid, Scott. Bobby's mom and dad just did what any parent would do under the circumstances.
Do you blame Xavier for all this?
Not really. It kind of freaks me out when I realize how easily one of us can get taken down. But we all knew the rules when we signed up for this school. I just hope this doesn't make you disappear and join the Brotherhood like you did last time one of us got hurt. You're not gonna leave again, are you, Scott?
I'm not going anywhere, Jean.
Good. Because those few weeks you were hiding in the Savage Land with Magneto were just about the loneliest of my life. I swear to God, you're the only one who really gets me in that place. Listen, could you put an arm around me or something? I left my jacket in the Porsche and it's absolutely Baltic in here.
Sure. Is this okay?
That's perfect.
Jean,
Shh. You don't need to be so nervous, you know. You don't even need to try to find the right words. I'm a telepath, remember? I knew you liked me a fraction of a second before you did.
Class resumes at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, my Xmen.
Chester County, New York. The X-Men. Professor X.
You killed my girlfriend, you little cow! The first real action I get since I become a terrorist, and you blow her off a bloody roof!
So that you meet someone nice in physiotherapy, yeah?
Oh, that's funny, man. You guys just cracked me up. So let's see how wide you're smiling in T-minus 10 when I do the Hiroshima thing, huh? Do I look like a smiling jackass?
FAO Scott Summers. Do not open until midnight. My dear Scott, by the time you return from New Zealand, I will have packed my things and gone. I apologize for not saying this to your face, but you know how we telepaths are with verbal confrontation. I'm leaving because I failed. An exceptional one, I suppose. He told me he's woken up expecting that call every single day since Betsy joined the intelligence services.
I don't think I could do the same if the situation was reversed. I'm not even sure I'll be able to show my face at this service they're having for her at Westminster Cathedral.
It's strange, isn't it? None of the students even know what to say to me right now. I mean, they'll go off and fight Magneto at the drop of a hat, but everyone except Wolverine is afraid to catch my eye at the moment. Give it properly. What kind of monster can't even cry at his own son's funeral, for God's sake?
You are not a monster, Charles.
No, I'm careless and naive, and frankly, that makes me even more dangerous these days. This stupid dream of mine is over, Moira. As soon as we get back to New York, I'm disbanding the X-Men for good.
The Auckland Sky Tower, New Zealand.
Jean, I want a bubble around everyone on the team. Storm, take out the acolytes.
West.
It's times like this I realize how young they really are. And what a horrible, ugly mess I've made of things, Moira.
What? Who said you've made a mess of things?
Oh, come on. David dead, the Braddock girl lying on a mortuary slab, poor little Bobby Drake fighting for his life in an intensive care unit. His parents are taking him out of school and suing me for willful neglect. They told the press I'm a danger to children, and I'm not sure I disagree. How can I run a school to shape young minds when I couldn't even raise David?